Life isn't easy for wedge-tailed eagles, and now we're going to be talking about some of the threats that these birds face, particularly during the breeding season.
Yeah, you're right. When I became threatened species zoologist with the government, I had to learn a lot about eagles. And from day one, there was this one word that I heard again and again. And that word was nest.
Yes.
Nest, 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 nest. So we're in a beautiful dry forest here, aren't we, James? But I can't see any really big trees, am I right, that you might get a nest in?
Yes, all these trees are way too small typically for a wedge-tailed eagle nest.
Yeah, so what do you need in your tree? You need a fork, is that right? And
a big fork to hold the structure of the nest. And because of the size of those nests themselves, which can be 1.5 meters across, there was one nest that I visited down or up near Fingal that was 5 meters deep. 5 meters
deep. That's brilliant.
It's bigger than some of these trees. So the actual girth of the tree needs to be pretty big to even hold the weight of that nest. And the big thing with wedge-tailed eagles is when they're breeding, when they're at their nesting site, if people get too close, they will readily abandon their nest and the chick or the egg will die. In other species of eagle, like the wedge-tailed eagles, so golden eagles, imperial eagles, they're also really sensitive to disturbance. We think that the wedge-tailed eagle here in Tasmania is even more so sensitive than those.
It's really, really hard to work around because we have thousands of nests all over Tasmania. And those eagles, they're really sensitive. Like how close can you get before they're freaking out when they're breeding?
So currently the regulations are 500 meters if they can't see you, or 1 kilometer away, which is double that, it's even further if they can see you from their nest.
And they find some kinds of behaviours, like things that we might be doing, much more disturbing than others, don't they? Like, I understand that they might actually find somebody walking along and looking at them much more disturbing than like somebody driving past in a car.
Yeah, and this is something you see a lot in animals in general. So if you're driving past a flock of sheep in a field, if you're in your car, they're kind of like doing their own thing.
Yeah.
And then if you get out of the car, they're like, oh, what's going on? And then they run away. And birds, because they see people walking less regularly, will see them more as a threat.
And of course, another thing, as I understand it, when an eagle's nesting, something that it finds really, really disturbing is something coming from the air. I don't know what it's thinking.
Well, we don't really know. We think that basically, if you're on the ground, an eagle won't attack you because it doesn't see you as a threat. It can get away from you. Aerially, they're really, really aggressive to whatever it is in the sky, even if it's as big as a helicopter. So not only will a helicopter flying past an active breeding nest be dangerous for the eagles, they might abandon their nest, it can also be dangerous to the people in the helicopter because the eagle will come down and actually try and attack the helicopter. So yes, bad news.
So we've been asking people to really bet, helicopter pilots and fixed-wing airplane pilots for a long time. We've been asking them to be aware of where the nests are. They're all on the Natural Values Atlas. They can look them up. But also now there's this new threat coming up of drones where, again, sometimes it's the drone that loses out if it's a small one, but it can quite often be the eagle as well, I think.
Yeah, because on the mainland, there's a PhD student studying wedge-tailed eagles called Simon Cherryman, and one of the eagles he was tracking actually had injuries that he thinks was from the propellers of a drone, and that killed the eagle.
Yeah, I think it's a really growing threat.
So sometimes I wonder what we can really ask people to do to help protect these nests.
Yeah, I know, it's really challenging because you've got these giant buffers, these giant areas around nests that you need to stay out of for that period. Now, what was that nesting period? They're kind of sensitive from June, July?
June all the way through to February.
So all that time, if you know of a nest that's in your general area, then the safest thing is to say, possibly as much as 1 kilometre away if you can, or at least not do anything surprising and unusual that you wouldn't normally do there at that time. So that's a really big deal. And also, if you do know of a nest, it's really helpful to report that to like the Natural Values Atlas, which you can Google. And then it gets recorded and then people know where it is, and if somebody's planning to do a burn or some sort of other activity that might really freak out the eagles, then they'll know it's there, so that's really helpful.
So really, even though eagles look scary themselves, they're really more frightened of us, particularly when they're nesting. So we really need to look after these nesting sites. We've covered off on the threats that the eagles face around the nest, so don't get too close, don't chop their poor nest trees down. And then we've also looked at the threats that they face once they go away from their nest site. So collisions with power lines, with wind turbines, with cars, and then also poisoning. And then we've also talked about the things that are being done to try and reduce these impacts and help the eagles.
So all these threats add up to some of the main reasons why this species, a wedge-tailed eagle, is listed as a threatened species. Is at the most severe status, it's listed as endangered. But here's hoping that all these things that people are trying to do are going to make a difference. That's why we're doing this survey. We would like to find out whether we're making enough of a difference.
Why Wedgie Why with me, James Pay. How would you decide if an animal is endangered or not?